A precision strike is a highly accurate and targeted military attack aimed at neutralizing a specific objective with minimal collateral damage. It relies on advanced targeting systems such as satellite guidance, laser designation, or onboard sensors to ensure a direct hit on the intended target. Precision strikes are commonly used to eliminate strategic threats, disrupt enemy operations, or destroy critical infrastructure while avoiding unnecessary destruction to surrounding areas. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower cut through the calm waters of the Florida Straits. Its deck a flurry of activity as the final preparations were made for the upcoming strike. In the briefing room, pilots of the Carrier Air Wing sat attentively as intelligence officers laid out the mission details. A large map of Cuba was projected onto the wall. A red-marked sector displayed the heavily defended industrial sites, fuel depots, storage warehouses, and refineries, each protected by an array of SA-6 gainful surface-to-air missile batteries and Zu-23 anti-aircraft cannons. "Gentlemen, Cuban and Soviet forces are expecting us," the intelligence officer began. "They have reinforced their air defense network in anticipation of an attack. Our primary targets are these fuel depots and refineries, and these sites will be protected by at least a dozen SA-6 launchers scattered throughout the region. Expect Zu-23 positions near every major site. This will not be a clean run." There were murmurs in the room. The pilots knew what SA-6s could do, early Cold War relics, but still deadly if given the chance. The first phase of the operation will be establishing aerial control. 2 E-2 Hawkeyes will be launched ahead of the strike package, one covering the eastern approach, the other the west. They'll conduct radar sweeps for enemy aircraft, ensuring we have early warning if the Cubans or their Soviet friends decide to interfere. The officer turned to the F-14 Tomcat pilot sitting at the front. "To make sure our Hawkeyes stay safe, we'll be launching 2 F-14s as escorts. They will be armed with AIM-54 Phoenix missiles to keep any high-altitude threats at bay, and Sidewinders and Sparrows for any closer engagements. If the enemy wants to contest our airspace, you will put them down." Lieutenant Commander Reed, one of the senior F-14 pilots, nodded. "Any sign of MiGs in the area?" The intelligence officer clicked through a few reconnaissance images. "We've seen limited patrols, mostly MiG-23s. However, radar has also picked up the possibility of MiG-29s in country, possibly flown by Soviet advisors. You engage only if necessary. Your job is to keep those Hawkeyes alive." A murmur passed through the room at the mention of the MiG-29s. The fulcrum was not to be taken lightly. With that, the officer stepped back, allowing the Air Wing commander to take over. We launch within the hour. Stay sharp. The enemy is dug in deep. The first aircraft launched for the strike were the Hawkeyes, known as Hummers to most in the Navy. They would conduct airborne early warning sweeps for any unknown air contacts in the area of operations. Shortly after, 2 Tomcats catapulted into the air. Their pilots were anxious about the upcoming strike. Phase 1 of the strike was in motion. The Soviets and Cubans knew they were coming now. Lieutenant Viktor Petrov felt the pulse of the MiG-23 beneath him. The vibrations in the control stick a constant reminder of the aircraft's raw power. His wingman, another MiG-23, flew in tight formation. They cruised at 10,000 feet, keeping a watchful eye on the horizon. Victor was scanning the straits ahead, the quiet hum of the radar system keeping Petrov alert, even if the sky appeared empty.
Keep the scan tight,
Petrov instructed his wingman, Lieutenant Ivanov.
we don't want to miss anything. Understood, Comrade Petrov.
Ivanov replied, his voice a mixture of tension and focus. Both men knew what lay ahead. The Americans had been silent, too silent. Their usual patrolling had decreased recently, making the air over the straits feel almost too calm. In the back of their minds, however, they both knew that something was wrong. But it was Ivanov's voice, suddenly sharp and urgent, that broke the silence.
Bogey at 12 o'clock. Heavy radar emissions.
Petrov's heart skipped a beat as his radar operator confirmed the call. He'd expected it, but not so soon. This wasn't just any blip on the screen. This was something significant.
Confirmed.
The radar operator reported.
Target is an E-2 Hawkeye, transmitting at high power in the Florida Straits.
Petrov's mind raced. This was the perfect opportunity to strike before the Americans could launch their main attack, but they couldn't do it alone. They needed backup. Backup that wasn't as far away as the MiG-29s.
Prepare to engage. We move fast. Ivanov, take point. Keep your distance, but be ready to close the gap.
Petrov ordered, his voice firm.
Understood, Comrade Petrov. Moving now.
Before they could begin the intercept, however, a new voice came over their comms, disturbingly calm and methodical.
Falcon flight. This is Havana Control. We've just detected F-14 Tomcats on radar. They are in the area and serving as fighter escorts for the E-2. Do not engage the F-14s unless absolutely necessary.
Petrov's mind flashed to the Tomcats. Powerful, agile, and heavily armed. Their radar capabilities were far greater than his MiGs, and their Phoenix missiles could strike from over 100 miles away. Engaging them without overwhelming force would be suicide.
Understood, Control.
Petrov said, gritting his teeth.
We'll stay on station and continue to patrol. We are not equipped to deal with the threat.
As the first wave of aircraft established control over the airspace, the second phase of the strike began. The deck crew of the Eisenhower worked methodically, guiding the heavily armed A-6 intruders and EA-6B prowlers into launch position. Inside the cockpit of his EA-6B prowler, Lieutenant Commander Mark Torch Monty adjusted his oxygen mask and scanned the array of electronic warfare systems before him.
All systems green.
His ECM officer reported.
Cuban radar sites are active. They're already sweeping the sky. Then let's shut them down.
Monty responded. The prowlers launched first, their powerful ALQ-99 jamming pods already emitting electromagnetic interference across the frequency spectrum. Following behind them, two A-6 intruders roared into the air. Unlike the Prowlers, these aircraft carried a lethal payload, AGM-78 missiles, designed to home in on enemy radar emissions and obliterate the sites tracking them. Lieutenant Jake Viper Hansen, leading the intruder strike package, keyed his radio.
Prowler team, confirm jamming effectiveness. We need those radar stations blinded before we get within range. Jamming at full power. Their scopes should be nothing but fuzz.
Monty replied. Below, on the northern coastline of Cuba, Soviet and Cuban radar operators struggled to make sense of their instruments. Warning lights flickered on their consoles, indicators of powerful jamming pulses saturating their systems. One officer slammed a fist on the table in frustration. "We're being jammed. We have multiple airborne contacts, but I can't get a lock on anything." At that moment, the first anti-radiation missiles launched. White streaks cut across the morning sky as the missiles homed in on the strongest radar sources. Explosions erupted along the coast as radar dishes and command stations were reduced to burning wreckage.
Splash multiple targets. Radar coverage is collapsing. Copy that.
Monty acknowledged.
Radio the Eisenhower. Tell them they're good for Phase 3.
With the Cuban air defense grid in disarray, the path was clearing for the next strike force. In the Eisenhower's Combat Information Center, Commander Grayson leaned over the plotting table. "Walk me through the coordinates again." Patel tapped a few keys on his console, and a detailed grid map of northern Cuba appeared on the main screen. Primary fuel depot, 22.930 degrees north, 82.410 degrees west, Havana outskirts. Soviet headquarters, 23.1350 degrees north, 82.3589 degrees west, inside Havana. Weapons storage facility, 22.9930 degrees north, 82.410 degrees west, 81.5470 degrees west, Central Cuba. Refinery buildings, 22.7640 degrees north, 82.2120 degrees west, south of Matanzas. Targets locked. All missiles programmed and ready for launch, the weapons officer reported. The captain gave a nod. Launch sequence initiated. Fire. From the Texas's armored box launchers, a series of Tomahawk missiles erupted from their tubes, their solid fuel boosters igniting as they climbed into the sky. Within seconds, the weapons transitioned to cruise mode, skimming the ocean surface at high subsonic speeds. The Tomahawks skimmed low over the water, their terrain following radar systems hugging the contours of the ocean as they sped toward the Cuban coast. Salt spray whipped beneath their fuselages as the missiles streaked toward their programmed waypoints. As they crossed the coastline, the missile's onboard guidance systems adjusted for altitude. The first wave of Tomahawks split off, heading for the fuel depots. Their radar seekers activated, honing in on the electromagnetic signatures of the storage tanks. A fuel depot near Havana detected the approaching threat. Its defenses struggled to respond, but the lead missile had already acquired the signal. The Tomahawk struck with surgical precision. The fuel tanks erupted in a towering fireball, sending a shockwave rippling across the surrounding area. The second wave of Tomahawks targeted the storage warehouses on the outskirts of Havana. Flashes erupted across the horizon as the missiles found their marks. Black plumes of smoke curled into the sky as secondary explosions rattled windows for miles. Out of the 8 Tomahawks, all hit their targets, destroying some of their warehouses full of valuable communication equipment and weapons. But it wasn't enough damage, and soon the final phase of the attack force would finish the job. Minutes after the Tomahawk impacts, 31 planes from the Eisenhower, a mix of A-7 Corsairs and A-6 Intruders, streaked low toward the remaining buildings. The attack aircraft approached the target area as Cuban SAM radars flickered to life. The telltale electronic signals of radar locks illuminated the cockpits. An SA-6 missile erupted from the tree line, streaking toward the formation. An A-7 banked hard, dumping flares, but was hit while on its final approach to the bombing target. The missile struck the Corsair's left wing, sending it spiraling into the jungle below. Two more SA-6s launched from hidden batteries. One missile exploded between 2 tightly flying Corsairs, shredding their wings and sending flaming wreckage plummeting into the ground below. Half the strike group broke off, vectoring toward an airfield just outside Havana. The lead intruder lined up the runway. A string of Mark 82 bombs tumbled from the intruder's pylons. The first exploded along the runway's edge, throwing concrete and debris skyward. The second tore through the taxiway, destroying it completely. 4 aircraft were hit by ground fire as they passed over the airfield. One intruder pitched downward, its wing shredded by a burst of 23mm fire from a Zu-23 emplacement. The surviving aircraft pulled hard and banked toward the coastline, running back to their carrier. The runway was cratered and torn apart, littered with wreckage. Pilots parachuted down from their destroyed aircraft, awaiting capture on the ground below.